Meet Captain Doze, the amazingly lazy superhero. He's not your typical caped crusader. While most superheroes are out battling villains and saving the day, Captain Doze has a different approach to heroism. Captain Doze was no ordinary superhero. He didn't spend his days training or patrolling the city. Instead, he preferred the comfort of his cozy apartment, where he could relax and unwind. Sure, he had incredible powers, super strength, the ability to fly, and even super speed. He could lift cars with ease, soar through the skies, and outrun the fastest vehicles. But these powers were rarely put to use. But Captain Doze had one tiny flaw. He was amazingly lazy. His superpowers were often overshadowed by his love for sleep and relaxation. He could spend hours lounging around doing absolutely nothing. He much preferred napping to fighting crime. While other heroes were out on daring missions, Captain Doze was usually found napping on his favorite couch, dreaming of far-off places and adventures he'd never actually embark on. Saving the world could wait, but his nap time? Never! His alarm clock was set to remind him of his heroic duties, but more often than not, it was ignored in favor of a few more minutes of precious sleep. Captain Doze lived in a comfy apartment with his pet goldfish, Bubbles. His home was a sanctuary of peace and quiet, filled with soft pillows and cozy blankets. Bubbles wasn't impressed with his heroic antics either. The goldfish would often watch Captain Doze with a look of mild disapproval, wondering when he would finally get up and do something heroic. He'd often find Captain Doze asleep on the couch, superhero costume still on, snoring louder than a runaway train. The sound of his snoring echoed through the apartment, a constant reminder of his laziness. Bubbles would just sigh and blow bubbles, wondering if Captain Doze would ever wake up and save the day. The goldfish had long given up on expecting any real heroics from his owner. One sunny afternoon, the city was in peril. The peaceful streets were suddenly filled with chaos and panic. A giant robot was stomping through the streets, causing chaos. Buildings shook, cars swerved, and the ground trembled under the weight of the mechanical menace. The city was in desperate need of a hero, and people ran for cover. The citizens screamed and scattered, trying to find safety from the rampaging robot. It was a scene of utter pandemonium. This was a job for Captain Doze, but where was he? The city needed its hero, but Captain Doze was nowhere to be found. Captain Doze was fast asleep, of course. Oblivious to the chaos outside, he was lost in a deep slumber, completely unaware of the danger that threatened his city. He was dreaming of fluffy clouds made of cotton candy and a giant hammock swaying gently in the breeze. In his dream, there were no robots, no emergencies, just endless relaxation. His alarm clock, set to hero time, buzzed persistently, but Captain Doze just pulled the blanket over his head and muttered, 5 more minutes. The city would have to wait, for Captain Doze was in no hurry to leave his dreamland. The city had a new problem, a cookie thief. This wasn't just any cookie thief. This villain was swiping every last chocolate chip cookie in sight. The city was in an uproar. Who would steal all the cookies? And more importantly, how would they enjoy milk with their snacks? The mayor called upon their laziest hero. Captain Doze, we need you. Our cookies are disappearing faster than you can say chocolate chips. Captain Doze yawned, stretched, and rubbed his eyes. Cookies, you say? Sounds serious, he mumbled sleepily. Serious? It's a catastrophe, cried the mayor. We need you to catch this cookie criminal. Captain Doze scratched his head, thinking hard. How could he get out of this one? Then it hit him. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, he said with a yawn, but I can't help you right now. I'm busy, napping. It's for, superhero training. Yeah, that's it. The city's bank was being robbed. Alarms blared and police cars sped through the streets. This was a job for a hero with super speed. This was a job for Captain Doze. But Captain Doze was busy trying to beat his high score on a video game. Pew, pew, take that, evil alien invaders, he shouted at the television. Suddenly, his superphone rang. It was the mayor again. Captain Doze, where are you? We have a major situation at the First City Bank. It's those pesky robbers again. They're after the jelly bean vault this time. Captain Doze winced. He hated when the mayor called during his gaming marathon. Mr. Mayor, you see? I'd love to help, really, but... He glanced around the room and spotted his laundry basket overflowing with clothes. My super suit! It's... at the dry cleaners, he blurted out. Allergies acting up. The city was under attack. The once peaceful streets were now filled with panic and chaos. But this time, it wasn't a giant robot or a cookie-craving fiend causing the mayhem. It was something much more terrifying. A giant vacuum cleaner. Yes, you heard that right. A giant vacuum cleaner. It rampaged through the city, sucking up everything in its path, trees, benches, even small dogs. Nothing was safe from its powerful suction. This time it was Bubbles, Captain Doze's trusty pet, who alerted him to the danger. Bubbles jumped up and down in his bowl, splashing water everywhere and pointing with his fin towards the window. His urgency was clear. Outside, the giant vacuum cleaner was wreaking havoc. The phone rang, breaking the tense silence. It was the mayor, his voice trembling with fear and desperation. Captain Doze, we need you. The city is in grave danger. A giant vacuum cleaner. It's sucking up everything. The mayor's voice cracked as he described the scene. Captain Doze knew he couldn't ignore this call. The city needed him now more than ever. But how could he get out of this one? The giant vacuum cleaner was unlike any foe he had faced before. He grabbed a tissue and dramatically sneezed. Achoo! His allergies were acting up at the worst possible time. Oh no, Mr. Mayor, I'd love to help, but it seems my allergies are acting up, Captain Doze said, trying to mask his reluctance. It's all this dust. I mean, the giant vacuum cleaner. It's terrible. He pointed towards the window, emphasizing the chaos outside. Captain Doze knew he had to find a solution, and fast. The city was counting on him. He thought back to his past victories, drawing strength from the times he had saved the city before. An idea began to form in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, he could use the vacuum cleaner's own power against it. He quickly gathered his gadgets, preparing for the battle ahead. This was going to be a tough one. With a determined look, Captain Doze stepped out, ready to face the giant vacuum cleaner head-on. The fate of the city rested on his shoulders. I think I pulled a muscle! The city was in a state of confusion. People were running around, unsure of what to do, and the air was filled with a sense of urgency. The TV remote was missing. It was as if it had vanished into thin air, leaving Captain Doze in a state of mild panic. Okay, maybe this wasn't a citywide emergency, but it was a big deal for Captain Doze. He had just settled into his favorite spot on the couch, ready to binge-watch his favorite show. How else would he change the channel without getting up from his extremely comfy spot on the couch? The thought of moving was unbearable. He searched high and low, but the remote was nowhere to be found. He even checked the most unlikely places. He checked under the couch cushions, behind the TV, and even in the most obscure corners of the room. He even looked inside the refrigerator. You never know. Nothing. It was as if the remote had grown legs and walked away. He was about to give up when he heard a news report on TV. The voice of the news anchor caught his attention. Don't worry, citizens. Captain Doze is on the case, the news reporter announced cheerfully, with a smile that seemed almost too bright for the situation. Captain Doze choked on his glass of juice. What case? He sputtered, his mind racing to catch up with the sudden announcement. The news report continued, showing footage of a traffic jam caused by a giant rubber ducky blocking the highway. It was a sight to behold. Oh, that case, Captain Doze mumbled, realizing that his moment of relaxation was about to be cut short. He couldn't possibly be expected to help now, not when he was so comfortable and the remote was still missing. He had a real emergency on his hands. The phone rang, breaking his train of thought. It was the mayor once again. The urgency in his voice was palpable. Captain Doze, we need your help! The mayor's voice echoed through the phone, filled with desperation. There's a giant rubber ducky blocking traffic on the highway! The situation was escalating quickly. Captain Doze knew what he had to do. He couldn't ignore the call for help, even if it meant leaving his cozy spot. He grabbed his back and groaned dramatically. "Ow, my back!" he exclaimed, trying to muster the energy to get up. "I think I pulled a muscle," he declared, hoping it would buy him a few more moments of rest. "It's all that heavy lifting," he continued, thinking back to the last time he had to save the city from a similar predicament. "Saving the city and all," he added, trying to remind himself of his duty. "It's a real hazard of the job, you know," he said, finally mustering the strength to get up. He knew that being a superhero wasn't always glamorous, but it was his responsibility to protect the city, no matter how comfortable the couch was.